It's Amelia, aka Big Tit,
And I'm Natasha, aka Little Tit.
and together we're the Graveyard Girls.
Hello.
Hello.
I was just going to jump straight in then. Hello.
Okay. Is this a normal episode or a
This
Patreon?
is a normal...
Okay.
I don't have a Patreon. You should have a Patreon today.
Yeah, I have Patreon.
Okay, there we go.
I have a
Yes.
couple of Patreons. We're
Okay.
spoiled for choice.
So this is a true crime and mysteries one.
Okay.
True crime. So, have you ever heard of the Blackout Killer?
Ooh.
Also known as Blackout Ripper and the Wartime Ripper?
No.
Neither did I.
Okay. I'm guessing it happens in wartime.
It does. So it fits in with my timeline of like me trying to stick to the early 20th century.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's ever really been covered.
Okay.
So I wanted to cover it.
Okay. Does this mean that there's not much, or you have managed to find a lot?
There's a lot on it.
Okay.
It's just, I think lots of true crime things tend to focus on like the big, massive, like Jack the Ripper or modern cases. So, Gordon Cummins was born in New Ayswick in North Yorkshire on the 18th of February 1914 and was the first of 4 children born to John Cummins and his wife Amelia Lee.
Oh, I'm in it.
You're only a housewife though.
Oh, okay.
John was a civil servant who ran a school for delinquent youths, and Amelia was just a housewife.
Oh, just a housewife.
Well, this is the early 1900s.
Well, you know.
You can't be expected to be anything more than that.
I know, but if I didn't feed them all, they'd all be starving, you know. If I didn't clean the clothes.
So the family resided in South Wales when Gordon was at a private school, and he graduated with a diploma in chemistry.
Oh, okay.
At the age of 18, Gordon moved to Newcastle, where he briefly worked as an industrial chemist. So he's quite smart. But he was dismissed from this job after 5 months. It tends to be he's not very good with timekeeping and stuff like that, so he's constantly out of jobs. In August 1933, Gordon obtained employment as a tanner in Northampton.
Ooh. Oh, so he's moved around a fair bit then.
Although he was fired again from this due to his poor timekeeping after 13 months. In October 1934, Gordon relocated to London and obtained a job as a leather dresser in a clothing factory, and this earned him about £3 a week, which is about equivalent to like £60 in our money.
Okay.
And then he later trained to become a foreman at this firm.
Okay, so at least he seems to have held that down a bit longer.
A little bit longer. While residing in London, he developed a desire to live the life of an aristocrat.
Oh, okay. So
Not a cat. He wants to be a cat.
maybe he did want to be a cat, a posh cat.
So obviously he frequented hotels and clubs in the West End, falsely claiming that he was the illegitimate son of someone who was very well known, but he wouldn't like name drop
Oh,
them.
right, okay. So he'd be like, I'm son of Lord so-and-so.
Yes.
Okay.
And he also claimed to receive an allowance from this person. To support this daydream, Gordon practiced his accent to imitate that of an Oxford person. So he's...
He's very good at acting. Maybe you should have gone for that as a job.
And he insisted on being referred to as the Honourable Gordon Cummins.
Okay.
To fund this make-believe lifestyle, he stole and embezzled, and he also regularly bragged to colleagues of his sexual excursions with local women.
Oh.
So this may be true, may not be true. To his employers, his extravagant lifestyle impacted his work performance, and therefore he was eventually fired.
Would make sense.
In 1935. Shortly after this, he moved into his brother's flat in Queen's Mews in Bayswater in like the London area.
Okay.
As he was out of a job, he signed up for the RAF in 1935. He initially trained as a rigger and tasked with undertaking flight checks on aircraft. He was regarded by his superiors as an ambitious individual, although his boastful attitude and false claims of nobility made him quite unpopular with the fellow servicemen.
I can imagine.
Who gave him a nickname, the Duke.
Okay. I'm calling him the dupe.
Yeah. In May 1936, he met Marjorie Stevens, and after a 7-month courtship, they got married on December 28th of that year.
Ooh.
So it's like, that's kind of normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between the years of 1936 and 41, he was stationed around Scotland before being transferred to Cornwall for a short period in 1941.
Okay.
This is where he appeared before the RAF selection board to take an aviation exam. His exemplary performance earned him a transfer to the Aircrew Receiving Centre in Regent's Park, so now he's going back down to London. From Scotland via Cornwall.
Okay, so he's been all over the place then.
Mm-hmm. This is where he'd be stationed with 300 other men, and he was ordered to report for duty at 10 a.m. on the 2nd of February 1942.
Okay.
But before this, he was a rather naughty boy.
Oh dear.
He is suspected to have killed his first victim.
Oh. I thought someone was going to kill him for pretending to be people.
No, he is the wartime ripper.
Okay.
He is suspected of committing his first 2 murders in October 1941.
Okay.
His first suspected victim was a 19-year-old clerk named Maple Churchyard.
Oh.
I was like, that's a
really unusual
Yeah.
name.
And she was murdered on October 13th. I haven't checked if that's Friday.
Oh. Well, it's unlucky for some anyway. Unlucky for Maple.
Maple is known to have frequently engaged in casual sexual relations with servicemen. It's good for her.
Good for her. Nothing wrong with that. Obviously not at the time. It was very frowned upon.
It's frowned upon in public, but lots of people did it. So
Yeah, I think they were more sort of...
accepting, turning a blind eye.
I think it happened more then
Of course it did.
than it does now.
Yeah.
I don't think socially it was acceptable. You just pretend... They pretended it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So there is one woman who... Most of these tend to live in flats because it's London, and there's a landlady who, like...
She'll rent a room out.
Yeah. Her nude body was found by workmen in a bombed house on Hampstead Road the day after her murder. She had been strangled to death with her own cami knickers by someone described by the pathologist who examined her body as being left-handed.
Okay.
Because the bruising around her neck indicated the murderer had strength in his left hand rather than his right hand.
Okay.
Her handbag had been emptied of like all of its contents. There was some strewn about, but people who went to like look through her, like confirm it was Maple, noticed things were missing.
Okay.
Her death is believed to have occurred approximately 9:15 on the 13th.
Okay.
4 days later, on the 17th of October, a 48-year-old woman named Edith Eleanora Humphreys was found lying on her bed at Regent's Park home.
Oh.
She had been extensively bludgeoned around her face and head before her assailant had attempted to strangle her before cutting her throat.
I was going to say it's like a different... oh my God, what's the word?
Not motive.
Method of...
Yeah.
oh my God, what's the
Does it
the
begin
word?
with the M or O? Something operandi.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Method. Basically, it's different the way they killed her.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually.
She had also suffered a single stab wound to her skull.
Oh.
Which penetrated her brain. She was still alive, but died shortly after she went to hospital.
How did she survive that for that long?
No idea.
I was going to say got lucky, but not really.
So the door to her property was ajar, and investigators found no signs of a forced entry to her home, and several items had been stolen.
Oh, okay. So are we going with like robbery, or are they trying to do the robbery bit to cover up a motive for the murder?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think the killer tends to take souvenirs.
Okay.
At the time of these 2 murders, Gordon was stationed in Wiltshire, although he was on leave.
Okay.
And he is known to have frequently visited London, residing at an address nearby in St. John's Wood, so not too far.
Yeah, and I suppose like at the time, London, out of all of the places, would have still been one that's relatively easy to get to, with it being the capital.
Mm-hmm. On Sunday, the 8th of February 1942, Gordon left a RAF establishment in Johnswood to visit his wife at the flat they share in South Walk. That's a weird name. He borrowed a £1 note, and this is equivalent to about £60 as of today. So I misspoke earlier. So earlier I said £3 was £60, so it's a bit more than that. And he told her that he wanted to visit the West End for a night on the town.
Ah, okay.
And he left his home about 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if he was like there for a few days before he went out for the night out.
Or if it was just a passing.
Yeah, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going out now.
Okay.
So, thanks. The following morning, the body of a 41-year-old pharmacist, Evelyn Hamilton, was discovered by an electrician named Harold Batchelor in a street-level air raid shelter in Montague Place.
He likes dumping them in air raid shelters. Like, I know there's a lot about because of the time, but...
Yeah, and I think it's also, if there's not an air raid going on, there's no one around them.
Yeah,
so they're quiet.
I thought they were still policed by wardens. So that, if an air raid suddenly went off, they could direct people in.
Mm. But he is a serviceman, so maybe he can
Oh,
work his way
easy,
around.
Yeah, he'd blend in.
So her clothes had been disarranged and her scarf was around her head. Scuff marks on her shoes and broken sections of the mortar scattered near her body indicated she had struggled with her attacker. The attacker had raised her skirt above her hips and pulled her underwear below her knee level and exposed her right breast.
Oh. So they're all slightly different, but not, if that makes sense. Like, there's some overlap, but there's also, each one seems... from the outside, if they weren't so close together, you could maybe mistake them for not... Like, you wouldn't necessarily relate them.
I think it's also... Maybe strangulation is the same thing, but I think he's like learning what he likes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's like
he's adapting or something, yeah.
Evolving.
Yes, that's
the
it.
word I was
that's
looking
it.
for.
Thank you. So her handbag, which had about £80, the money had been stolen, and the empty handbag was later found by a police officer in a nearby street. No fingerprints were recovered from any of her possessions. The location of her body led investigators to conclude she had been either accosted or attacked as she walked back to her boarding house in the early hours of the morning.
Would make sense.
Her post-mortem revealed she had been manually strangled by a left-handed individual.
Okay.
But she had not been sexually assaulted.
Oh, which, not saying I'm surprised about, that sounds a bit harsh, but given how she was posed, I thought that insinuated that she had been.
Maybe she had been groped, but nothing internal.
Oh, okay, yeah. I suppose it's still sexual assault, really, isn't it? But in those days, they wouldn't have classed it as that, would they?
She had numerous small cuts and scratches, but this doesn't seem to be like what's going to go on later on.
Okay.
So I think he's getting into cutting. So she's got a tiny cut on her left breast,
right,
which is probably from him, but nothing anywhere else.
Okay.
Her body was identified by her landlady, who was Catherine Jones, on the 10th of Feb. So she died on the 8th. We're going to get a bit more graphic here.
Okay.
And I don't know...
Trigger warning.
Yes, I don't know if we should cover everything or not. I don't know.
Go for it.
Okay.
I've given a trigger warning.
Okay. So shortly after 8:30 a.m. on the 10th of February, 2 meter readers discovered the naked and mutilated body of 34-year-old Evelyn Oatley lying on her bed in her flat in Soho. She had been beaten around her mouth and chest, then strangled into unconsciousness before a 6-inch cut had been inflicted to her throat, severing her artery.
Oh, nice. So she bled out rather than dying of strangulation?
It looks like that.
Okay.
Her head hung over the edge of her bed. Her abdomen, genitals, and thigh had been extensively sexually mutilated with a safety razor blade and a tin opener.
Oh.
After death. 6 of these wounds had been inflicted around her vaginal cavity, the jagged nature of which suggested they had been inflicted with the tin opener.
I hope this has been done after she's dead.
She's dead, yes.
Okay. Not that makes it any nicer, but I mean, at least she wasn't alive.
She had also been sexually violated with electric torch, which was protruding from her vagina.
Oh, okay, so shoving things in there.
Mm-hmm. A pair of blood-smeared curling tongs was found close to her body, and a blood-stained razor blade laid next to the left of her head.
Right.
The contents of her handbag were strewn across the floor of her bedroom, and 7 unused Gillette safety razor blades were recovered from the small nightstand beside her bed.
Right.
The door to her apartment had been closed but not locked. No defensive wounds were found on her hands or arms.
Also, hopefully he killed her quite quickly.
Hopefully. Fingerprints discovered from the bloodstained tin opener and on the corner of a broken section of mirror within her handbag, which had also been used to mutilate her body, indicated that the murderer was left-handed. These fingerprints didn't match any of the police in the database.
Okay, so someone that's not been caught already.
Yes. The killer didn't take a break, as he killed again on the 11th. But the body of Margaret Florence Lowe wasn't discovered until 2 days later on the 13th. Oh. Margaret was a 43-year-old prostitute, and she was last seen alive by her neighbour Florence Bartoloni at approximately 1:15 a.m., walking along the corridor to her flat in the accompaniment of a client.
Okay.
On the 13th, she was found on her bed beneath the quilts, which were just below her chin. She was on her back with her legs apart and her knees bent, so it's like...
Okay, yeah.
She had been extensively beaten, then strangled to death with her own silk stocking, which had been knotted beneath the right side of her jaw, and froth was visible around her nose and mouth.
Okay.
Forensic pathologist Sir Bernard Spilsbury remarked that the injuries inflicted by her murderer were quite dreadful.
Okay.
Adding that the perpetrator was a savage sexual maniac who indulged in a wicked lust to penetrate the most diabolical injuries on women he killed. So these wounds are a lot more graphic than
the previous one.
Yes,
so double trigger warning.
I might not go through everything. So,
is it bad that I'm a bit curious?
She'd been alive for some of them.
Okay.
So she's extensively slashed and mutilated with lots of implements, including razor blades, a vegetable knife, a table knife, and a poker.
Oh, okay.
And some were still protruding from her body.
Okay.
Her abdomen had been opened, exposing her internal organs, with one further wound inflicted to the right side of her groin with a deep gaping wound measuring 10 inches in length.
Wow.
A large serrated bread knife protruded from a wound close to her groin. A wax candle had also been inserted 6 inches into her vagina, and her uterus had been slashed.
This is very... different. They are kind of the same, but they're also very different. I know he's evolving, but
he likes to strangle them, and then I think he's like, "Oh, let's try this."
Is it more like an afterthought, like a way of posing them? Do you think it's more of a shock factor?
Maybe. So, Billsbury says, because of these injuries, it is left no doubt in his mind that the same killer also killed Evelyn as well.
That would make sense. They're definitely very similar.
So yes, it's not a nice one. It's surprising that it's not
more publicised. Yeah.
But I think because it's wartime, the papers didn't really write about it because they couldn't.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because they've got to be seen to keeping things jolly.
Well, they'll just document what's going on in the war.
Well, there's that. They did have other stuff, but it's more the role of radio and newspapers at the time were to try and keep everyone in good spirits. Yeah. So I don't know, they were just mostly writing about nice things.
So as with most killers, they tend to slip up, especially as they get cocky. So Gordon made a mistake on Thursday the 12th of February. So he's literally doing it every single day.
Oh, okay.
Gordon accosted a 25-year-old prostitute named Catherine Mulcahy in Regent Street. She agreed to take him to her flat near Southwick Street. The two travelled to her flat via taxi, with Gordon giving her the agreed fee of £2 in advance.
Okay.
Upon entering the flat, Catherine lit her gas fire and began removing her clothes, but didn't remove her boots.
Right.
As she was removing her clothes, she said that Gordon had a strange smile on his face and beckoned her to join him on the bed, and then she removed his clothes.
Right, okay.
As she got towards the bed, he climbed on top of her. He slammed his knees into her stomach and attempted to strangle her as he pinned her body to the bed with his own weight. Because she's got her boots on, she attacks back.
Okay.
She managed to break free of his grasp and he fell on the floor beside her. She ran screaming from her flat to the house of a neighbour.
Okay.
Trying to defend himself, he partially dressed himself before approaching her neighbour's flat and then gave her a further 8 £1 notes, stating, "I'm sorry, I think I've had too much to drink this evening." But she repeatedly called him a murderer. He grabbed his coat and fled, but he left something behind. He left his RAF webbing belt at her flat.
What I don't get, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If he's killing these women every day, and I'm guessing he's making a bit of a mess. I know with those other women, technically he's got undressed. However, some of those particularly brutal ones, how is he not getting blood on his uniform? Okay.
Thank you.
Do you see what I mean?
I think they find some little bits of blood.
Okay.
But it's also happening at night, so you can kind of like...
Yeah, but then he'll have to go into the RAS. Like, I know he's supposed to be on leave, but like surely in the day when he's running about, people are not noticing.
I know. Obviously, he didn't get his fix of killing after fleeing from Catherine. And this is where he found another woman.
Oh, no.
And she wasn't quite so lucky.
Ah.
And this was 32-year-old Doris Jouanet. I didn't look that up. It might be French. Doris, according to her friend, was going to see a client on the 12th at her home.
Okay.
She had married a former elderly client of hers and sometimes still worked as a sex worker when she wanted a little extra money.
Okay.
Her husband worked at a local hotel and sometimes had to stay overnight, so this is when Doris would exchange.
Okay.
So she wouldn't have men in the house when he was there, you know.
Fair enough.
On the 13th in the evening, so the next night, Doris's husband, Henry, returned home only to find their bedroom door locked.
Oh.
Unable to get the door open, he phoned the police. It doesn't state how old he is.
Okay. I'm thinking like old dithery old man.
Yeah. And like he wants to take care of.
Yeah.
Constable William Payne arrived at the scene and advised Henri to stay in the hallway.
Okay. Oh.
Payne pried open the door and turned on the light, and he discovered Doris's naked body, except for a open black nightgown, lying diagonally across the bed with her left hand in between her legs.
Okay.
A silk stocking was knotted around her neck. He then phoned for more police.
Okay. At least he did that bit right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir Bernard Spilsbury conducted Doris's autopsy. This is the same man who's done the others. At Paddington Mortuary on the 14th of February. Her jaw had been broken before she had been strangled with the stocking.
That's a good smack to the face, isn't it?
And her stocking was knotted beneath the left side of her chin. Her abdomen, genitals, left breast and thighs were extensively mutilated with a razor blade and a knife in a similar manner to the bodies of Oatley and Lowe. One of the wounds inflicted was a 6-inch vertical gash extending from between her navel to her genitalia. Another wound inflicted to her vagina measuring 6.5 inches. The flesh beneath her left breast had been carved away.
Oh.
So, like, it is very Jack the Ripper. Spilsbury was able to determine that Doris had been strangled to the point of death before her murderer had first mutilated her breast and left thigh as she died. All the other wounds had been inflicted after death. On the evening of the 13th of February 1942, Gordon attacked another woman.
Oh, bloody hell.
This one is Margaret Haywood, and she's in Piccadilly.
Okay.
After sharing a drink and a sandwich with him, the two walked in the direction of Haymarket. Haywood later stated that at this point he had become unpleasantly forward,
Right. Okay.
pushing her into a doorway in nearby Piccadilly Circus and groped her waist and attempted to persuade her to accompany him to a nearby air raid shelter.
Okay. He's going back for the air raid shelter thing then.
Mm-hmm. Haywood consented to a single kiss before informing him that she did not know of any nearby shelters, saying, in any case, I wouldn't go in one with you.
Okay. Good on her.
Yeah. Gordon then began fondling her, and she slapped at his wrist and pushed his hands away from his body and attempted to leave. In response, he seized her again by the throat, pushed her back in the doorway. She was strangled into unconsciousness.
Oh, God.
As he repeatedly muttered the words, "You won't."
Oh, okay.
As he was rifling through her handbag, he was disturbed by an 18-year-old delivery boy. And this is John Shine. And he was carrying bottles of drink to the nearby captain's cabin pub. And
Is he going to save her?
He saves her.
Okay.
So this means that Gordon has to flee the scene, and he's left another something of his
in a
behind.
panic. So he's not that prepared.
He's left his RAF issue gas mask and haversack behind, which clearly has everything.
And how's he explaining this when he goes back to the thingy? Because he's missing half of his stuff. Was it a belt before that he's lost? How's his trousers staying on?
So John immediately ran to her assistance. Noting that she had regained consciousness, he then offered to accompany her to the hospital. En route, they encountered a policeman named James Skinner, and he suggested the two accompany him to the West End Central Police Station to provide a witness statement detailing her attack before an officer accompanied her to a nearby hospital. Immediately after his attack on Haywood, he visited a pub where he realized he left his gas mask and haversack behind. And his service number was printed on the inside. So that's not good. In an effort to concoct an alibi, he stole another airman's haversack and gas mask before he returned to the base. At the West End police station, John Stein handed the gas mask and haversack over to the investigators, explaining he had recovered the items from the doorway where he found Haywood. Insisted the items had been in the possession of the man who was going through the bag. A detective sergeant named Thomas Shepard noted the RAF regiment number printed on the inside of the haversack.
Was it also on the belt?
I don't think so.
Oh, I was going to say, it could link to the two.
I know. The RAF were contacted, and they confirmed that the gas mask and haversack belonged to Gordon Cummins. The staff sergeant who confirmed this information also relayed that Gordon was not at his billet. So where is he? Detective Sergeant Thomas Shepard formally questioned Gordon on the morning of the 14th of February. He protested his innocence and claimed he had spent the evening drinking whiskey and bitter with a corporal whose name he couldn't remember.
Convenient.
He said I drank a lot and remembered talking to a young woman but didn't remember assaulting her.
Okay.
Immediately after he provided a written statement of the account of the previous night's events, he was arrested and held on remand until a charge of causing grievous bodily harm. Gordon covered his tracks with the other nights he wasn't at the billet, or so he thought. An examination of the entries within the billet passbook on the 15th of February indicated he had reported back to the billet between 10:30 p.m. on the dates of the murders and attempted murders that the investigators thought the Blackout Killer.
Right, okay.
But these were written in pencil, meaning that they could have been changed at any time.
Okay.
Also, he's not very good at timekeeping, as we know.
Yeah.
So,
at first, is that how he's covering himself? He's just going, I was running late.
No.
Like, it would kind of be a good cover.
No.
Oh.
The days that he commits the crimes is the only days that he tends to sign, as all of a sudden started signing in and out. So all the other times...
he hasn't. So he's only doing it to provide an alibi.
Yeah,
so it stands out.
So it's like, you're not very good there. So they searched Cummins' possessions and they revealed that he had various items belonging to the 4 murder victims that are linked to the Blackout Killer. And that's a bit strange, isn't it? Why would he have that?
Obviously someone planted them.
But he said, like, that's from the person he took the haversack from.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
they're in there.
Oh, okay.
One of the items that had been found in the possessions was a white metal cigarette case engraved with the initials LW, which had belonged to Evelyn Oatley.
Okay.
This is very weird. The cigarette case was discovered hidden in a kitchenette alongside a photograph of Oatley's mother. So
Right.
I'm assuming he took a picture of her mum as well.
Well, maybe it originally, because the initials are different, maybe it originally belonged to her mum and she's received it if the mum's passed away, so she's kept a photo of her mum in it.
In the cigarette case.
Yeah.
I suppose. I thought he might have just taken the photo as well.
No, I think it's
Okay.
probably in the cigarette case.
Okay.
It might have been handed down. You know, like, it's all she had left of her mum or something.
So you mentioned about blood earlier.
Yeah.
Traces of blood was also recovered from a shirt retrieved from his kit bag and the lining of a surface of one of his belts.
Right, okay.
An examination of the trouser turn-ups of his military uniform also revealed a distinctive brick dust mixture found at the air raid shelter in which Evelyn Hamilton's body was discovered.
I'm very
Said
surprised
that
about
very-
this, because my impression of, like, the RAF and, like, any army is they want them to look immaculate.
Yeah.
So, like, wouldn't even a sergeant or something have picked up, like, you've got a speck of dirt on that uniform?
But it's like on the inside. So like on the outside it looks fine.
Okay.
Chippings from the mortar were also recovered from his haversack.
Yeah.
So it's just Detective Sergeant Superintendent Frederick Sherrill, maybe, was able to match the fingerprint of Gordon's left little finger and thumb with the prints found on the tin opener and broken mirror found near the body of Evelyn Oatley.
Okay.
On the 16th of February, Edward Greenough drove to H.M. Prison, Brixton, to interview Gordon to recount his movements between the 9th and 13th.
Okay.
He insisted he had never encountered any of the murder victims and claimed to have been unable to recognise their photographs.
Right, okay.
He was obviously unconvinced, and Greenough informed him that he was to be charged of the murders of Oatley, Lowe and Joannette the following morning. He was held on remand at H.M. Prison, Brixton, to await trial.
Okay.
He was further charged with assaulting Haywood and Mulcahy, she has a weird name, Catherine, on the 20th of February. On the 27th of March, he appeared before a judge at Bow Street Magistrates Court. On this occasion, he was further charged with the murder of Evelyn Hamilton. The trial of Gordon Cummins for the murder of Evelyn Oatley began at the Old Bailey on the 24th of April 1942. He was tried before Mr. Justice Asquith. He entered a plea of not guilty to the charges against him.
What's his defence?
Someone else.
Doesn't have one.
Someone else. He seemed uninterested in the legal proceedings,
Okay.
occasionally chatting in a light-hearted manner
Oh, I
with
feel
his
like he's a bit
lawyer,
smug.
or turning to the bar to smile and wave at his wife, who believed he was completely innocent.
Oh, no.
The jury returned their verdict at 4:35 p.m., having only deliberated for just 35 minutes.
Okay, so they
So
were
it's
pretty
a
certain,
clean,
yeah.
it's a clean. Each juror avoided making eye contact with him as they filed back into the courtroom. When asked by the court clerk as to their verdict, the foreman replied, guilty of murder. He displayed no emotion as the verdict was read out, but his wife burst into tears.
Oh, I feel a bit sorry for her.
Yeah,
I mean, she's had a lucky escape, really.
Yeah, they
because
had no
she could have been.
yeah. They had no children either. They strike me as like, whenever he was on leave, it sounded like he was just like, he went to their flat and then just left.
Yeah. Yeah, because did he spend any time with her?
Yeah.
Or maybe he was just telling her he was still away.
Yeah. Gordon Cummins was executed by Albert Pierrepoint.
Yes.
Yes. Is that the son of the...
No, it's the man I covered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. At Wandsworth Prison on the 25th of June 1942. Due to it being wartime, his crimes weren't in the press, as they probably would have been, but the sex workers of the area knew about the deaths and would only see regular clients. Once Gordon was arrested, it filtered into the papers, and this is where the press dubbed him the Blackout Killer.
I mean, it's quite an apt name, isn't it?
It is. And that is... I've never heard of that.
No, I've not. It's quite interesting, though. Like, he evolved very quickly.
It's like...
You know, normally, like, it's
Yeah.
over a period of a few years, and then,
Yeah.
like, they gradually evolve.
His is literally days.
So either you could maybe hypothesise that maybe he did already have the idea, but you know, with the other women, he was disturbed too quickly that he didn't have time
Yep.
to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, but also, like, it seems it's quite graphic for a sudden thing. Like, I'm surprised he didn't have any other crimes before. Because you don't normally see an escalation, don't you? Like, what made him just suddenly get up?
Maple and the other woman are only suspected. He is not convicted of them. Maple.
But even still, it's like it almost starts off with the more graphic ones.
Yeah.
So, like, what made him suddenly do that? And, like, was he ever forceful towards his wife? Do you know what I mean? Like, you feel like it's got to be something psychological. Like, he needs to be, like, predisposed to it. So you would expect him to be abusive towards his wife.
So, like, what was he doing in Scotland? None of these crimes are in Scotland. He's just there for years. And then all of a sudden he's in London. He wants the lifestyle of a aristocrat.
But even so, like, you would have expected him to have, like, other sexual assaults towards women. Yeah. Even, like, from his teenage years.
So either...
Because how old was he again when he started killing? Is he 30s or 40s?
He was born in 1914 and he starts when he's
in his
36. In 1936, so he's not that old. He's like in his 20s.
Oh, okay, so he's like half the age of all the women he's killing then, because they're in their 40s, aren't they?
Some are young. One's 19, 48.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so maybe he didn't have a time.
41. The women that he's killed
are sex workers.
All have.
But in terms of an age, he doesn't have a preference.
No.
Okay.
I
just don't see how he's either not been involved in other crimes or he's not been even like assault and stuff like that. It seems a bit of a drastic turnaround to suddenly go, because it's not even like I don't want to say just strangling them, but do you know what I mean? It's not like he's just killed them on a bit of a whim and he gets off on it. He's like fully mutilating them. Like, how do you get from that if you've done nothing before?
Exactly. I think there was probably some crimes that he got away with beforehand.
Yeah, there must have been, or something. Either that, or there was a major event, like something happened. Yeah. Because I don't think just the pressures of war alone was enough to.
But he wasn't fighting. He was stationed.
But you don't know what you're going to see. Because if people were being sent home, you might see like mutilated bodies.
Yeah. I could be wrong. He obviously did fly, but I don't think he bombed anyone. He was one of the lucky ones and not having to fight on the land. He's
definitely an interesting character.
Yeah.
I'd like to know more about like maybe like what he was doing in his early years. Obviously we know he says like he wasn't keeping down a job and he's doing other things, but it would have been interesting to see if there was any other crimes similar to what had happened in those areas at those times. That were just never attributed. Either like what's the word?
Documented? Unreported?
Unreported. Okay. Or if they were reported, they were like unsolved. Like there wasn't anyone convicted, or someone was later found to be wrongly convicted in it. Because it's quite a like specific attack, so you would have thought they would have stood out.
Just lots of strangulation, and then those
and mutilations. Interesting. But yeah, it was a good one. I like it. I like it when you find a case that you've like not heard anything about. Because sometimes I hate it. You know, when you're looking for a case, and you're like, oh, I've already seen loads of people cover this, or even if it's a case you think's not very well known, but all of a sudden everyone covers it, and you're like, no, I wanted to cover this case.
Well, I have all the ones that I kind of want to do up until next year. This one was supposed to come out March the 27th, but because we've messed up the timeline with when the order of stuff comes out, I was just like, I'll just do this one now.
It's hard sometimes knowing when to bring that, because there was one I nearly did the other month, but I saw 2 other podcasts do it, and I was like, I don't want to think that I'm like jumping on their bandwagon and like releasing it all within the same week. So I was like, plus people would be bored of it at the time. Like, people might forget about it so many months down the line.
But yeah, I've not, well, to be fair, I've not looked for this on any other podcast, but I haven't found it or heard about it anywhere.
But yeah, well, maybe if you get some time, it might be worth looking to see if you can find any other crimes. Maybe I need to do that with other things, like, you know, the ones we've done, see where there's a bit of a gap, or it looks like there's a suspicious gap.
Yeah.
Look at what other crimes happen.
Well, he probably had a lot of time. That's why his timekeeping was so poor when he had his jobs. He was off doing something.
He must have done something before to someone.
Of course he was.
But it's interesting, like, that he had a wife but was never abusive towards her.
That we know of.
Well,
but she was still emotional and believed he was innocent.
Yeah,
so,
do you know what I mean? Like, you know, if it all come out, she could turn around and go, oh yeah, he abused me as well. But like the fact that she seemed he was so innocent, you would have thought, even if she was naive, you would have thought he was violent towards her. I
think some people see their wives as different to other women.
Maybe.
So that might be it. So like she's sacred, whereas these sex workers aren't.
Yeah, maybe. But even still, you would have thought, like, you know, if he was in a bit of a mood that like triggered it off, it might just get the better of him.
Or maybe he's like, he will never take it out on her. That's why he's probably like, I'm going out for the evening after they've had an argument. Don't know. Is that it for today? I
think so. Okay. Unless we have anything else to add.
I don't think so.
Okay. In the meantime,
keep creeping.
And we'll keep digging.